My daughter refused to come to the hospital when I was on the edge of death because she was celebrating her husband's birthday. I'm busy, she said, even after the doctors begged her to hurry. 2 weeks later, I made a phone call to the bank and did what I had to do. Not long after, my daughter burst into my house in a panic, but by then, I had already made my choice. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and share in the comments where you're listening from. The steady beeping pulled me back from somewhere dark and distant. My eyelids felt as heavy as stone, and when I finally forced them open, the sting of fluorescent lights pierced my skull. Mr. Dunn, can you hear me? A woman's voice, professional but warm. I tried to answer, but my throat was raw and dry. The room swirled around me. White walls, blinking machines, tubes running from my arms. My chest ached with every breath. What happened to me? I croaked. The nurse leaned closer. Her badge read, Janet. Behind her wire-rimmed glasses, her eyes were kind. You had a heart attack, Mr. Dunn. You're in Northwestern Memorial's intensive care unit. It's Tuesday afternoon, April 15th. Tuesday? My mind flashed back. I remembered heading to the grocery store Monday morning. Everything after that was gone. How long have I been here? Since yesterday evening. Paramedics brought you in around 7. She adjusted one of the machines. You gave us quite a scare. A young doctor appeared at my bedside, a stethoscope hanging around his neck like a medal of authority. He pressed the cold metal against my chest, frowning slightly. Mr. Dunn, I'm Dr. Jameses. Your heart took significant damage, but you're stable now. We need to monitor you closely for the next few days. Will I be okay? The words came out weaker than I meant. With proper treatment and lifestyle changes, many people recover well. He scribbled notes on his clipboard. We'll talk about medication, diet, and follow-up care. I nodded, my engineer's mind instinctively cataloging every detail. Heart attack, damage, monitoring. Yet the words felt unreal, like they belonged to someone else's life. Janet adjusted my IV drip. Your blood pressure's improving. Any pain right now? Some. I shifted, and a sharp stab shot through my chest. Feels like someone's sitting on me. That's normal, Dr. Chemes has said. We'll control the pain, but let us know if it worsens. The afternoon blurred into tests. Blood draws, EKGs, endless check-ins. Nurses moved with steady precision, explaining machines, monitoring vitals, adjusting meds. By evening, I was stable enough to transfer to a regular room. Janet coordinated the move, wheeling me through sterile hallways, lined with identical doors. Room 347, she announced as we entered. This one will be more comfortable. The window overlooked the city, where lights flickered on as dusk fell. Chicago looked different from this height, smaller, almost orderly. The view reminded me of blueprints I once studied, everything neatly mapped. Dr. William will see you soon, Janet said, with a final check of the monitors. He's your cardiologist. Good man. You'll like him. Exhaustion weighed me down. At 68, I'd always prided myself on independence, but now I couldn't even sit up without help. Out the window, life carried on. People heading home, families gathering, kids laughing in parks. And here I lay, tethered to machines, every beat of my heart tracked and measured. A knock at the door, then a tall, distinguished man stepped in. His silver-streaked hair and calm presence commanded respect. "Noah, I'm Dr. Grover William." He sat beside me, opening a thick chart. "How are you feeling tonight?" "Like I've been hit by a truck," I admitted. "But better than this morning." He gave a faint smile before growing serious. "The heart attack was severe. A STEMI. It struck the main artery, supplying blood to your heart." I nodded, grasping the mechanical nature of his words. He showed me an EKG printout, jagged lines across the page. "See here. This shows damage to your left anterior descending artery. We managed to open it with emergency medication, but you've lost about 20% of your heart muscle." "What does that mean?" "For my future. With treatment, many people live full lives after this. But I won't lie. It was touch and go for hours." He leaned closer. "Noah, I need to ask, do you have family we should contact?" Thus, question tightened my chest. "My daughter, Lily, she lives in Lincoln Park with her husband." Dr. William hesitated, clearly uneasy. "I tried calling her yesterday, when you were admitted. It was critical. We didn't know if you'd make it through the night." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. "You spoke with her?" "Yes." His voice lowered, heavy with compassion. "Noah, I've practiced cardiology for 25 years. I've made countless calls to family in moments like this. When I told your daughter you might not survive the night, she said she was busy, that it was her husband's birthday. She couldn't leave the party." The words hit harder than the heart attack itself. My monitor beeped faster as my pulse spiked. "Even when you told her it might be my last night?" Dr. William looked down, then back at me with sorrow. "Unfortunately, yes." His voice was gentle, but firm. I explained the seriousness. "Told her you were asking for her. She said she'd try to visit sometime this week, if her schedule allowed." I stared at the ceiling, letting that sink in. The daughter I had raised, educated, and supported through every storm of her adult life couldn't be bothered to leave a birthday party while I was dying. "I'm sorry to have to tell you this," Dr. William continued. "I debated whether to share it at all, but I believe patients have the right to know how their family responds in times like these." "No, you were right to tell me," I whispered. My own voice sounded hollow, even to my ears. "I needed to know." He stayed for a few more minutes, explaining medications and recovery expectations. But his words barely reached me. My mind kept replaying the same thought. She was busy. It was her husband's birthday. She couldn't leave the party. "I'll check on you tomorrow morning," Dr. Williams said, standing. "Try to rest. Your body needs time to heal." When the door shut behind him, the silence pressed down on me. Only the steady beeping of the heart monitor reminded me I was still here. Through the window, Chicago's skyline stretched endlessly, each light representing a life, a choice, a priority. Lily had just made hers. I shifted in bed, searching for a position that eased the ache in my chest. But this pain had nothing to do with the heart attack anymore. She was busy. It was her husband's birthday. I stared at the city lights again. Each flicker was a reminder of families who would rush to a father's side without hesitation. Maybe Dr. William misunderstood. Maybe Lily hadn't realized how serious it was. She could be forgetful, wrapped up in her own world, but deep down, I knew the truth. This wasn't the first time she put her convenience above my needs, only the cruelest. My mind drifted back 23 years to Northwestern University. Lily, bright-eyed and determined, stood in the kitchen with acceptance letters spread across the table. Dad, I got into Northwestern. Can you believe it? I could believe it. I'd helped her with every application, every essay. What I couldn't believe was the tuition bill, 40,000. My engineering salary was solid, but that number meant years of overtime, canceled vacations, and postponed retirement. And yet, looking at her face, so full of hope, how could I say no? I worked 60-hour weeks for 4 years straight, weekends at the consulting firm, holidays spent buried in project reviews. My back ached from hunching over blueprints, and I lived on coffee and grit. But when Lily graduated magna cum laude, I couldn't have been prouder. Then came the wedding. James Harper, a smooth-talking entrepreneur with big dreams and bigger debts. I never trusted him, but Lily was in love. Dad, you only get married once. I want it to be perfect. $15,000 for one day. The venue, the flowers, the photos, everything had to be the best. I emptied my vacation fund, borrowed against my pension, and worked myself ragged until my hands shook. The marriage lasted 2 years. They split, reconciled, split again, and every crisis, every failed business, every reconciliation, I was there, with my wallet open, down payment for their first house, 12,000, loan for James's failed restaurant, 8,000, emergency money when Lily lost her job, 3,000, car repairs on their BMW, 500. I kept mental tallies, like an engineer does, with calculations, the total, over $100,000. And that didn't include birthdays, Christmases, or the endless weekends I spent helping them move. And last night, while I lay in this hospital bed, she couldn't leave a party. I rolled onto my side, ignoring the pull of IV lines, and stared again at the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, in the Lincoln Park condo I helped them afford. Lily and James were probably laughing, sipping expensive wine, celebrating another year of James's worthless existence. She'd try to visit this week if her schedule allowed. As if I were just another appointment, the anger grew slowly, warm in my gut, before spreading like fire through my chest. For 68 years, I'd been the reliable one, the provider, the man who sacrificed so others could succeed. And what had it given me? A daughter who chose a party over her father's life, a son-in-law who lived richly on my labor, but never earned it himself, a lonely hospital room where I added up the brutal math of unconditional love. I had given Lily everything. Now, it was time to see what she would do when everything was on the line. The heart monitor beeped steadily in the darkness, each pulse a reminder that I was still here, still capable of making choices about my life and my legacy. Lily thought she could ignore me, take me for granted, treat me like a burden. She was about to learn how wrong she was. Morning light filtered through my window as I swallowed the pills Nurse Janet lined neatly on my table. 3 days had passed since Dr. William shared his devastating news. While my heart was slowly healing, Something deeper inside me was hardening. "Time for your walk, Mr. Dunn," said Rita, the physical therapist. Her cheerful tone grated on my mood, but I complied. We shuffled down the hallway, my legs weak, but stronger than yesterday. The cardiac wing buzzed with quiet voices and the rhythm of machines. In room 352, I noticed an elderly man sitting alone, staring at a wilted bouquet. "Good morning," I said, pausing at his doorway. He looked up, tired eyes meeting mine. "Morning. You're the engineer from 347, right?" "I'm Harold." "Noah," I replied, leaning against the doorframe. "You look troubled." Harold let out a dry laugh. "My son drained my savings while I was in here. $35,000. Gone. He said he needed it for his business." He pointed toward the wilting flowers. They had come with a card that simply read, "Sorry, no visit, no phone call." Just one hollow word. The impact of that single word hit me like a physical blow. "Another father, another betrayal. Family," Harold said bitterly. "They think we'll forgive them forever. Just because we're their parents." I returned to my room unsettled, his words echoing in my head. That afternoon, I made my first phone call. Chase Bank, customer service. "This is Michelle." "This is Noah Dunn. I need information on revoking power of attorney over my accounts. I'll need to verify your identity first, Mr. Dunn." After the standard questions, she continued, "To revoke power of attorney, you'll need to appear in person with documentation and file formal revocation papers." "What documentation exactly?" "Photo ID, the original power of attorney document, and signed revocation forms. Processing takes 24 hours once filed." I thanked her and hung up, my thoughts racing. Lily had a power of attorney over my finances, decision I'd made 2 years earlier when pneumonia left me unable to manage bills. Back then, it seemed practical. Now, it felt like I had handed her a loaded weapon. The following week dragged by with quiet precision. Each day brought small victories, walking farther on my own, eating solid food again, relying less on pain, medication. More importantly, each day brought new clarity. On Wednesday, I called Thompson and Associates, the notary office downtown, regarding will modifications. The receptionist explained, "Illinois law requires the testator to appear in person with two witnesses. If there have been recent health concerns, we also recommend a competency letter from your physician, and that letter, usually from your attending doctor, confirming you're mentally capable of making legal decisions." Perfect. Dr. William would provide that without question. By Friday, my discharge plan was in place. Lily had called only once, a short, obligatory conversation. "I'm doing much better," I told her. "That's great, Dad. James and I have been so busy with his new consulting business. We'll try to visit once you're home and settled." Try, as if visiting her recovering father were a chore to squeeze in between meetings. That evening, I met Eleanor from room 341. She was recovering from gallbladder surgery and, like me, had been left behind by her child 30 years. "I raised that girl," Eleanor told me in the hospital garden. "Paid for college, helped with her wedding, babysat her kids every weekend. When I needed surgery, she said she couldn't take time off work. Too important," she said. I listened, realizing her story mirrored mine. We were parents who had given everything, only to learn our children had mastered the art of taking but not giving back. What will you do? I asked. Her eyes hardened. Change my will. Every penny goes to the animal shelter now. At least, dogs are loyal. Her words stayed with me long into the night. Friday, Dr. William gave me his final examination. You're ready for discharge, he said, handing me prescriptions and follow-up appointments. At the door, he paused. Noah, I hope you'll consider forgiveness. Holding on to anger isn't good for your heart. I smiled, surprised at how genuine it felt. Doctor, anger isn't what I'm holding on to. It's clarity. That evening, I watched the Chicago skyline flicker against the night. Somewhere out there, Lily and James were living comfortably, sustained by decades of my sacrifice, completely indifferent to how close I had come to death. Tomorrow, I would go home. Tomorrow, I would take back control. The power of attorney would be revoked. The will would be changed. Lily would learn that taking her father for granted had consequences she never imagined. This wasn't revenge. It was justice. And as an engineer, I knew the precision that true justice required. The discharge began at 8 a.m. sharp. Dr. Jameses handed me a thick folder. Papers, medication schedules, dietary restrictions. My signature wavered slightly on the forms, but my resolve never faltered. No heavy lifting for 6 weeks, he reminded me. And if you feel chest pain or shortness of breath, call immediately. I nodded, though my mind was already beyond medical restrictions. Dr. William stopped by as I gathered my few belongings. He looked exhausted, worn down by too many farewells. Noah, I wanted to see you off personally. You've endured an enormous ordeal. Give yourself time to heal before making big decisions. Doctor, I said quietly, you've been more family to me these past 2 weeks than my own. Thank you for your honesty about Lily. Painful, but necessary. He studied me. Forgiveness can be healing too. Sometimes people don't realize the damage they've done until consequences teach them. You're right about that, I said, though not in the way he meant. After he left, the discharge nurse wheeled me to the hospital entrance. Hospital policy, she said with a cheerful smile. The April air hit me like a revelation. After 2 weeks of recycled oxygen, the city breeze felt alive. Chicago stretched out before me, full of strangers who had people waiting at home, people who cared whether they lived or died. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, maybe from weakness, maybe from anticipation. Chase Bank, customer service. This is Noah Dunn. Account number 4478921. I need to revoke power of attorney on all accounts immediately. I can assist with that, Mr. Dunn, but revocation requires your physical presence at a branch with the proper documents. What documents? Photo ID, the original power of attorney papers, and signed revocation forms in front of a bank. Officer, I'll be there this afternoon. Which branch handles these requests? Our main downtown office at 125 South LaSalle. They're open until 4 p.m. Perfect. Enough time to go home, collect the papers, and begin reclaiming my life. I opened the rideshare app. Still strange. Compared to hailing a taxi, my fingers moved slowly across the screen. Entering my home address in Evanston, A driver named Victor would arrive in 8 minutes. 8 minutes on this sidewalk. And the weight of my decision settled over me like a well worn coat. A businessman rushed past, barking into his phone about quarterly reports and missing his daughter's recital. A young mother pushed a stroller, balancing a call about daycare schedules. Everyone had responsibilities, priorities, people who needed them. Everyone except me, but that was about to change. For 68 years, I had been the dependable one, the provider, the safety net for everyone else's dreams and mistakes. I worked overtime to pay for Lily education. I emptied my savings for her wedding. I sacrificed my retirement security to cover her husband's failed businesses. And when I was dying, she couldn't even leave a party. My phone buzzed. Your driver, Victor, is arriving in a white Honda Accord. I watched the car roll up to the curb. A middle-aged man with graying temples stepped out to help with my small hospital bag. Time to go home. Time to collect those power of attorney documents. Time to visit Chase Bank and begin reclaiming control of my life. Lily thought she could ignore me, treat me like an afterthought. She was about to learn how costly that mistake would be. Victor Ramirez moved around his Honda with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent decades helping people in and out of his car. His weathered face softened when he saw me leaving the hospital entrance. Northwestern Memorial. You okay, my friend? He asked, taking my bag without hesitation. I'm better now, I replied, easing into the passenger seat. The car smelled faintly of coffee and pine air freshener. A rosary swung from the mirror, and a small photo of a young man was taped to the dashboard. Evanston? Up Sheridan Road? He confirmed, checking his GPS before pulling into traffic. Heart trouble? He asked, his voice steady, but direct. I nodded, surprised at his bluntness. Most people avoided that topic. My father had 3 heart attacks, Victor continued as we joined Lakeshore Drive. Tough man, worked construction 40 years. Each time we thought we'd lose him. Did your family rally around him? I asked. Victor gave a short laugh, tinged with bitterness. The first time, yes. By the third, my siblings were complaining about hospital visits interfering with their schedules. He glanced at me in the mirror. Family's complicated, isn't it? The words lingered as Lake Michigan stretched to our right, its waters restless under the April wind. Behind us, Chicago's skyline shrank with each passing mile. My daughter couldn't even leave her husband's birthday party when the doctor told her I might not survive the night. I admitted. Victor's hands tightened on the wheel. Man, that hurts. How old is she? 42. Old enough to understand what matters. You'd think so, he said quietly. After a pause, he gestured toward the photo on his dashboard. That's my son, Eduardo. Lives in Los Angeles now. Big shot marketing executive. Beautiful house. Expensive car. You must be proud. I said. I was. Haven't heard from him in 5 years. His voice carried the weight of disappointment. Last time we spoke, he told me to stop calling so much, said it embarrassed him when his colleagues heard about his taxi driver father. The words hit me like a physical blow. Here was a man who knew the same sting, the betrayal of being cast aside by the child you'd sacrificed everything to raise. How do you live with that? I asked. Victor took the Belmont exit, steering north through Lincoln Park. I learned something important, Noah. Family isn't just blood. Family is who shows up, who answers the phone at midnight, who waits with you in a hospital lobby. We passed the neighborhood where Lily and her husband lived, their condo stuffed with expensive furniture I had helped them buy. For 2 years after Eduardo cut me off, I was angry, Victor said, bitter, resentful, always asking where I went wrong. Then I realized I was giving him power over my happiness, even after he abandoned me. So what did you do? I started living for myself, took the trips I'd always dreamed about, learned guitar, made real friends who wanted me for who I am. Turns out, I'm good company when I stop wasting my time on ungrateful children. We entered Evanston, passing the university where I had once paid Lily tuition. Students hurried along the sidewalks, carrying backpacks and ambitions, fueled by parents who believed sacrifice equaled love. Victor turned onto my street. The truth is, he said, kids like that think we'll always be there, always forgive, always bail them out. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do is let them face the consequences of their choices. My house appeared ahead, a modest two-story colonial with a small front yard I had once maintained religiously. It looked smaller now, less imposing than when I had left 2 weeks ago for what I thought was a simple grocery trip. Victor parked in my driveway and faced me fully. Noah, I don't know every detail, but if your daughter could ignore you when you were fighting for your life, maybe it's time she learned what life looks like without your support. He helped me out of the car, refusing my offer of a tip. My number's in your phone now, he said, handing me a card. Groceries, rides, someone to talk to. You call me. That's what real family does. I stood in my driveway as his card disappeared down the street, his words echoing in my mind. Family is who shows up. Lily hadn't, but Victor had. Dr. William had. Even Harold and Eleanor, fellow patients, had shown me more care than my own daughter. It was time to live for myself, time for Lily to learn what consequences felt like. My key turned in the lock for the first time in 2 weeks. The familiar click filled me with relief. Home. The air inside was stale from being shut up, but it was still mine, my sanctuary. Then the doorbell rang, sharp and insistent, followed by pounding fists against the wood. I had barely set down my hospital bag when the knocking grew harder. Through the frosted glass, I saw two figures standing on my porch. Dad, open up. We know you're in there. Lily's voice cut through the door, carrying that sharp edge of fury I remembered from her teenage years. But now, it was different, harder, more desperate. I opened the door to find my daughter and son-in-law standing like an invading force. Lily pushed past me without waiting, James following with his usual swagger. What stupid thing did you do with the power of attorney? Lily snapped, spinning to face me. Her perfectly styled hair was disheveled, her business suit wrinkled. The bank called us an hour ago. Stupid. I closed the door slowly, buying myself a moment to absorb their ambush. I was dying in Northwestern Memorial, and you were at a birthday party, I said. The words landed heavy between us. James stepped forward, using his height to loom over me. Old man, you don't understand what you're messing with. You need financial supervision. That heart attack clearly damaged your judgment. My judgment? I moved into the living room, forcing them to follow me into my space. My judgment told me to revoke access to my accounts from people who couldn't be bothered to visit their dying father. Lily's face flushed red. We didn't know it was that serious. The doctor made it sound routine. Dr. William told you I might not survive the night, I said, keeping my voice steady, controlled. You said you were busy. That's not. How did you? Lily stammered, then stopped herself. James grabbed her arm before she revealed more. Listen, Noah, James said, his tone hard. You're confused. Heart attacks cause memory problems. You don't remember things clearly. We were there for you. I sat down in my favorite armchair, the one I'd bought after months of overtime to pay for Lily's wedding. You're lying to my face in my own living room. Dad, you're being manipulated by hospital staff, Lily said, her voice slipping into that wheedling tone she used as a child when caught misbehaving. They've filled your head with stories to make you angry at us. Get out. The words came quiet, but final. James's face darkened. You can't just kick us out. We're family. We have rights. This is my house, I said, standing with surprising steadiness. You have no rights here. You're trespassing. Lily moved quickly between us, her businesslike mask cracking. Dad, please, let's be rational. You're making a huge mistake that affects all of us. The only mistake I made was trusting you with access to my life savings. James's fists clenched. You ungrateful old fool. We've sacrificed for you. Lily has spent years managing your affairs. And this is how you repay us? Sacrificed. The word burned in my mouth. I paid for your failed restaurant. I covered your credit card debts. I gave you the down payment for your condo. What exactly have you sacrificed? Our time, our energy, James started. But Lily shot him a warning look. The damage was already done. Their true feelings were in the open. I walked to the front door and held it open. Get out. Now. This isn't over, Dad. Lily's voice had gone cold, her mask stripped away, revealing something calculating underneath. We'll fight this. We'll prove you're not competent to make these decisions. James leaned in close as he passed, his voice dropping to a threatening whisper. You have no idea what you've started, old man. They left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I stood there for a long moment, listening to their car doors slam and the engine roar away. In the silence that followed, I could almost hear a phantom heart monitor beeping, reminding me how fragile life had become. With shaking fingers, I turned the deadbolt. The metallic click echoed through the stillness of my violated home. The quiet was profound, but not peaceful. It carried a charged tension, like the air before a storm. I straightened the throw pillow Lily had knocked askew during her tirade. Such a small thing, but in my orderly world, it felt like evidence of intrusion. Her parting words echoed in my mind. We'll prove you're not competent. I walked into the kitchen, my legs unsteady. Filling the kettle with water, I leaned on, the familiar ritual of tea making to steady my nerves. Tea had always been my thinking drink. As the water boiled, I replayed their arrival. They hadn't called, hadn't tried to reason. They came straight from the bank, storming my house with accusations and threats. James's aggression had been especially telling. looming, sneering, calling me old man in my own living room. That wasn't concern, that was fear. The kettle whistled. I poured water over Earl Grey leaves, watching the amber swirl spread through the cup. My hands no longer trembled. Carrying my tea, I sat by the window facing the street. Lily's BMW was gone, but the echo of their presence lingered, like the uneasy feeling that someone has just left your home. We have rights. We'll fight this. James had said more than he realized. Their panic betrayed them. This wasn't just anger about losing financial access, it was desperation. They had been depending on my money far more than I had imagined. I settled into my reading chair, angled perfectly to catch the afternoon light. Outside, Mrs. Rodriguez tended her garden, and the mailman made his rounds. Normal suburban life carried on as if my world hadn't just shifted on its axis, but the confrontation had clarified one thing. Canceling the power of attorney wasn't enough. If they were willing to storm my house and threaten me, they'd go further. They'd try to use the courts to paint me as incompetent, to strip me of independence. I pulled out my old engineering notebook, the one I'd once used for complex calculations. Now, I needed to solve a different kind of problem: how to protect myself from my own family. I wrote Lily and James. Financial desperation, willing to use legal system against me. Stronger protective measures required. Sunlight slanted across the room where I had spent so many quiet evenings, reading and planning. That life was gone now. They had made sure of it with their threats. I thought of Victor's words on the ride home. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for ungrateful children is let them face the consequences of their choices. Canceling the power of attorney had only been consequence number one, but if they wanted to escalate this conflict, I was ready to show them exactly how costly their greed would become. I reached for the phone. It was time to call Thompson and Associates about updating my will. 2 days later, Mrs. Rodriguez stopped me as I checked my mail. Her warm smile was replaced with an uneasy hesitation. Noah, how are you feeling after your incident? The way she said incident triggered warning bells in my engineer's brain. I'd known Maria Rodriguez for 15 years. She'd never been awkward around me. I'm recovering well. Thank you. Why do you ask? She glanced nervously toward her house, then back at me. Your daughter came by yesterday. She seemed very worried about you living alone after the heart attack. My blood pressure spiked, though I kept my voice steady. Lily was here? She said you've been forgetful, confused, that maybe you need supervision. Maria's tone carried genuine concern, but beneath it, I heard something else. Doubt. What exactly did she tell you? Maria shifted her gardening gloves between her hands. That you've been making reckless financial choices, canceling important plans without realizing the consequences. She asked me to keep an eye on you, to call her if you seemed unstable. The pattern became clear. They weren't just threatening me with lawyers, they were poisoning the well, quietly reshaping how my community saw me. Lily and James weren't just after my money, they were building a case for incompetency by manipulating the very people who cared about me. Maria, did I seem confused or unstable last week when we talked about your rose garden? She looked relieved to focus on something real. No, you gave me great advice about the aphid problem. Then trust that memory over gossip. 3 days later, I walked into Chase Bank to finalize new security measures. Afterward, the branch manager, Janet Chen, pulled me aside. Mr. Dunn, I probably shouldn't say this, but your daughter came in yesterday. She was asking about guardianship procedures. Ice formed in my stomach. Guardianship? She wanted to know what medical proof is required to declare someone unable to manage their finances. I couldn't share specifics, of course, but Janet lowered her voice. She was very focused on claims of cognitive decline after a heart attack. Did she file anything? No, but she scheduled a consultation with our legal department next week. I thanked her and left with a growing sense of urgency. Lily wasn't bluffing. She was laying the groundwork to strip away my independence. By the following Tuesday, their campaign was undeniable. At Brewster's Coffee, where I'd been a regular for a decade, the owner greeted me stiffly. Noah, good to see you're managing okay. Even Tom Brewster, who'd known me since Lily was in college, was treating me like I'd lost my edge. Tom, did someone suggest otherwise? He hesitated. Your daughter and her husband came by. They said you've been struggling since the hospital, making rash choices, confused about money. I ordered my usual black coffee, counted exact change, and talked baseball like always. Tom's shoulders eased. You seem fine to me. That's because I am fine, I said firmly. Remember that when people suggest otherwise. That evening, I sat in my kitchen reviewing the evidence of their character assassination. 3 neighbors, my bank, local businesses. Lily and James were building a witness list, a narrative of my supposed decline. The engineer in me almost admired their precision, but mostly I felt violated. They had turned my own community into weapons against me. I pulled out my notebook and wrote, Lily and James, coordinated incompetency campaign. Timeline, 1 week. Targets, neighbors, bank, businesses. Goal, legal guardianship. Beneath that, I added, counter strategy required. Immediate action necessary. I picked up the phone. This is Noah Dunn. I need to accelerate my will modification appointment. How soon can we meet? We have an opening tomorrow at 10 a.m. I'll be there. They had declared war on my independence, my reputation, my very right to control my own life. They thought a recovering heart attack patient would be easy prey. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The elevator carried me to the 14th floor of the LaSalle Street building, Chicago stretching out below through the glass walls. A city where families either protected each other or destroyed each other. I finally knew which kind mine was. James Mitchell's office occupied a corner suite with floor-to-ceiling windows over Lake Michigan. His receptionist led me to a conference room where Mitchell waited, legal papers spread across a polished mahogany table. Mr. Dunn, please have a seat. Mitchell was in his 50s, with graying temples and the calm presence of someone who'd navigated countless family battles. Before we begin, I need to ask a few questions to verify competency. I nodded. Go ahead. What's today's date? May 12th, 2025, Tuesday. Who's the current president? Donald Trump. Unfortunately, Mitchell smiled faintly. And why are you here today? I want to revoke my will entirely and create a new one. Lily and her husband are disinherited completely. He paused, studying me. That's a serious step. Are you sure this is what you want? I opened my notebook, the same one I'd used to record Lily and James's campaign against me. For 3 weeks, I'd documented their behavior since my heart attack. They'd manipulated my neighbors, tried to have me declared incompetent, and even threatened me inside my own home. Mitchell studied my notes with professional interest. This is detailed documentation, he said. What pushed you to this decision? My daughter didn't even leave her husband's birthday party while I was dying in the hospital, and when I regained control of my finances, they tried to ruin my reputation. I see. Mitchell jotted something on his legal pad. Illinois law allows you to completely disinherit them, but I need to make sure this will can withstand any challenge to your competency. What kind of challenge? I asked. They could claim your heart attack affected your judgment, that you weren't mentally capable of making this decision. Your notes help, but I'll add language to prevent them from contesting it. For the next hour, Mitchell crafted wording that would make my will ironclad. The new document left everything, my house, savings, investments, and personal belongings, to the American Heart Association. Lily and James would each receive exactly $1, proof that they weren't forgotten. This clause here, Mitchell explained, pointing to a paragraph, states that you are of sound mind and body, that this decision was made carefully, and that any attempt to contest it will cause them to lose even that single dollar. Perfect. 2 paralegals from Mitchell's office entered as witnesses. Their role was to confirm my mental clarity during the signing. Mr. Dunn, do you understand the contents of this will? Mitchell asked formally. I understand completely. I'm leaving my entire estate to charity and disinheriting my daughter and son-in-law. Are you making this choice freely, without pressure? Absolutely. Freely. It's the most logical decision I've ever made. I signed with steady hands, the same hands that had drawn engineering blueprints for 40 years. The witnesses signed after me, and Mitchell sealed the document with his notary stamp. This will is now legally binding, he said, placing the original in his office safe. Tomorrow, I'll file a copy with the Cook County Probate Court. Your estate is protected. As I rode the elevator down, I felt lighter than I had in months. Lily and James had waged war on my competency, my reputation, and my independence. Now, they would learn the cost of that war. 3 days later, I sat in my living room, watching afternoon shadows stretch across the same carpet where Lily and James had threatened me weeks earlier. My will was secure in Mitchell's safe, but its true power lay in my knowledge. Their financial future had just vanished. At exactly 4 p.m., I dialed Lily's number, timing it so both of them would be home. Dad, she answered, surprised, but cheerful. How are you feeling? Much better, I replied evenly. I'm calling to tell you something important. I've changed my will. Silence. Then, finally, changed it how? Completely? When I die, you'll receive nothing. Her voice shot up an octave. Nothing? That's impossible. Everything goes to the American Heart Association. You and James will each get $1, so no one can say I forgot you. I heard the phone clatter, then frantic whispering. James's voice came on. Noah, you can't be serious about this nonsense. Dead serious. I said flatly. The new will was signed, witnessed, notarized, and filed 3 days ago. Lily came back, her voice shaking. Dad, this is insane. You can't just. We need to talk about this face to face. Feel free to come over. The line went dead. I made tea and settled into my chair as the golden afternoon sun filled the room. Somewhere across the city, Lily and James were having a very different kind of afternoon. They arrived in exactly 47 minutes. I timed it. The doorbell rang with the same aggressive urgency as before, but this time I held all the power. Lily rushed in first, James close behind. Their tone had shifted. Where they were once demanding and threatening, now they seemed small, desperate. Dad, please tell me this is some kind of joke. Lily's perfect composure had finally cracked. Her hair was messy, her business suit wrinkled, as if she'd been pacing for hours. No joke. Legal documents don't come with punchlines. James tried his usual intimidation, stepping closer to me. Old man, you don't know what you're doing. This decision affects more than just us. Really? Who else does it affect? I asked. Our future, our plans, our. He stopped short before admitting how completely they relied on me. Lily dropped onto my couch without asking, her hands trembling. Daddy, I made mistakes. I know I did. But cutting me out completely, that's not who you are. You're right, I said. The father who accepted your neglect and abuse died in Northwestern Memorial. I'm someone else now. We can work through this, she pleaded, her voice turning childlike, the same tone she used whenever she'd broken something valuable. I'll do better. I'll be there for you. I'll call every day. Lily, where were you on April 14th? When I was dying? She froze. How do you know about? Dr. William told me. He told me how you couldn't leave James's birthday party. How you said you'd try to visit if your schedule allowed. James's face darkened. That doctor broke confidentiality. No, I said. He told the truth. Lily began to cry, real tears streaming down her face. I was wrong. I made a terrible mistake. But you can't punish me for the rest of my life. I'm not punishing you for the rest of your life, I said calmly. I'm punishing you for the rest of mine. James knelt beside her, both of them now looking up at me. Please, Noah, we're begging you. Don't do this. Now, you know how it feels to be abandoned in your darkest hour. Lily looked at me through streaks of mascara, like war paint washed away in defeat. Please, Daddy, I'm sorry. I am so, so sorry. Sorry you got caught, or sorry you did it. James yanked her to her feet. His expression hardened. Fine. You want to play games, old man? We'll see about that. What game, James? The competency hearing. We'll prove you're mentally unfit. That heart attack scrambled your brain, made you paranoid and cruel. His voice grew stronger as he built his case. No rational man destroys his family over a misunderstanding. Lily wiped her face, her business mask slipping back into place. Dad, we've already spoken to your neighbors, your bank. People are worried about your condition. I rose slowly, letting my height speak for me. You mean the lies you've been spreading, the campaign you've been running. It's not manipulation when it's true, James snapped. You're old, sick, and irrational. The only irrational choice I made was trusting you with my finances for 2 years. Lily moved to block me. We're not leaving until you agree to reconsider. You're not staying either, I said, brushing past her toward the door. This is still my house. James blocked the exit. You'll regret this, Noah. We'll fight your will with everything we've got. With what money? Oh, that's right. You don't have any. The truth hit them at once. Without my accounts, without an inheritance, they had nothing. Lily's face went pale. You can't just abandon us like this. Watch me. James clenched his fists. You think you're clever? You're just a bitter old man dying alone. Better alone than surrounded by people who see me as an ATM. Lily hissed, her grief sharpening into rage. This isn't over. We'll contest this. We'll prove you're incompetent. We'll, you'll do exactly what you did when I was dying. Nothing. I opened the front door wide. Because when it matters, you only think about yourselves. They passed. James leaned close and whispered, You don't know what you've started. This war isn't over. Lily paused, her face torn between pain and calculation. I'm still your daughter, no matter what papers say. And daughters have rights. Daughters who show up have rights. Daughters who abandon their fathers face consequences. They left, not quietly. Lily slammed the door so hard the windows shook. Their arguing carried across the neighborhood as they fought over blame and lawyers they couldn't afford. Locked the door and settled into my chair. The house felt peaceful again, though I knew it wouldn't last. They meant their threats. They'd try to contest the will, try to prove incompetence, try to reclaim what they thought was theirs. But I've been solving complex problems for 40 years. Every structure I ever designed had to withstand pressure, weather, and time. This legal structure would do the same. Outside, evening settled over my quiet Chicago street. Somewhere, Lily and James plotted their next move. But here, in my home, surrounded by the life I built with my own hands and mind, I was exactly where I belonged. The phone rang. I let it ring. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. To hear the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.